Please stand by.
It's a time-tested tale. A young team coming of age.
Jokic on the attack, powering down. He put him in the chamber.
What Nikola Jokic is doing in his playoff debut has not happened very often in the history of this game.
Looking to restore the Nuggets' luster.
Nuggets haven't won a series in 10 years.
Challenged by a master strategist.
This is the playoffs. Nobody's going to come out flat.
Leading battle-tested veterans well-versed in the art of Game 7.
You can lean on experience, but we got to come ready. Everything is against us.
This climactic clash plays out a mile high.
We're ready for a Game 7 as we head to Denver.
Lifting tensions even higher.
Pressure is on them.
Wait, there's no pressure on the Spurs?
Isn't there pressure on both sides in a game?
Home court advantage. It doesn't matter. If they lose, their season's over. It's pressure on both teams.
Oh.
With the slam. Playoff intensity ratcheting up.
For one, tonight will be the conclusion of their story.
Nobody wanted this thing to end.
For the other, their hero's quest continues.
Game 7, how much do you have to say?
Outstanding job by our buddy Kyle Wells as he produced that look ahead.
That was really good.
To Game 7, and you can see the Spurs are 4-6, the Nuggets 1-2. They've played one Game 7 at home. That was in 1978. They beat the Bucks, and David Thompson had himself a 37-point game in that one.
Very simple formula tonight, Ernie.
For the Nuggets. So let's get to your formula after we hear from DeMar DeRozan talking about playing in Game 7.
The first Game 7 was against, I think, Brooklyn, against nothing but veterans. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson. It was probably one of the most intense, series I ever played in. Everybody know KG, how crazy he is. So that whole energy and that whole atmosphere for my first go-round was definitely one of the greatest learning experiences. For me, just that toughness is understanding how hard it is to win that last game. Man, go out there and play. Don't think too much like it's a Game 7, but play like we played last game. Play like you want to continue to keep this thing going.
Game 7, you guys have all been there before. In fact, we got the numbers in your career in playing in Game 7s. Shaq 3-1, Chuck 2-3, Kenny 3-1, and you see the respective numbers.
Shaq, you see 17 rebounds, right?
Yeah, but I also see 2 and 3. Me and Kenny, you see 3 and 1.
Well, you had Kobe.
That's the only number that matters.
You had the Kobe Bryant carrying your ass.
I got a question for you.
I got the MVPs. You better Google me, son. Google.
I got a question for you. Even if you've been around the league a long time and been in a lot of playoff games, if you have not been in a Game 7, for instance, LaMarcus Aldridge, this will be his 72nd playoff game in his career. Never played a Game 7. How different is it going to be for LaMarcus Aldridge?
I think it's going to be very different at first. It's all about, for me, it was all about that first shot. If I took the first shot and it goes in, I'm going to have a great day. If I missed a couple, now I'm starting to worry a little bit. I go away from it. Hopefully the guys can carry me, and then I would come back to it. But, I don't see him as a guy that gets nervous. He's going to play his game. But Chuck made this point the other day. He needs to get 20, 25. When you're on the road, you need to probably add 5 points to that. Him and DeMar, one of those guys need to get in the high 30s.
Well, to me, this is a very simple formula. It's about role players against stars. The Nuggets role players got to play. I think they're playing at home. They should play well. So if they play well, I think Denver's going to win the game personally. But Jokic's going to do his thing. But the role players got to do something. They haven't done anything really this series, but they've got to play. For the Spurs, it's different. It's about DeMar and LaMarcus. Your stars on the road, they got to play. Those role players, they might have a good game, they might not. But they will follow their stars. So to me, it's very simple. If Denver's going to win this game, their role players got to help Jokic and Murray out. But for the Spurs, those guys got to get 30 and 30.
A lot of the narrative, Chuck and Kenny and Shaq, heading into Game 7 was the fact that Greg Popovich concentrated on not giving open looks to the three-point shooters for Denver in Game 6 Let Jokic do his thing. He had a huge game, but limited the open looks that Denver had.
That's the point I just made. It's going to come down to those role players for Denver. They can't do what they did, but they will play better at home, Ernie, because, number one, Denver plays at a much faster tempo at home. But role players play better at home. Like I said, they get positive reinforcement. The crowd is clapping every time. People not saying mean, nasty things to them. but like I say, that's on the other end. Those guys, you see how those role players on the Spurs, they play better at home. But now those guys are nervous. This is when your stars, because they guys jump on my back, and then they gonna come.
Well, I think that, that's a school of thought for sure. I've seen and been part of different kind of things where there was what Charles is saying as role players. Everyone has a role, obviously. Somebody scores, somebody's assists more, somebody's a star of the team. There's different roles. But the teams that I look at Denver as is similar to what we had in Houston. The guy who is considered a role player, you think, oh, man, if he gets 15, 16, wow, that could help. No, this role player might get 30. Vernon Maxwell will get 30. Sam Cassell might get 30. Jamal Murray might get 30. Beasley might come off the bench and get 25. Those are different type of guys for Denver. There aren't your traditional, oh, get me 12 and I'll be happy. So, case in example, I broke the NBA record for three-pointers against the Orlando Magic. Different type of guys that's going to give you bigger numbers. That's what Denver has. Denver has guys that can really impact the game in a Game 7 much differently than a guy saying, oh, go get me 12 and don't be nervous.
Denver, 34-7 at home. The Spurs, this is their 22nd straight year in the playoffs. In the 21-year run, they've been knocked out 5 times in the first round, never in consecutive years, trying to avoid that. And you think about that 21 years, 5 first-round knockouts, 5 championships.
We the North, baby. We the North.
All right, the Eastern Conference semifinals begin in Toronto, while the Western Conference first rounder ends in Denver. It's TNT NBA tip-off presented by Auto Trader. From Atlanta Studio J, Ernie Johnson with Shaq and Kenny and Charles. This is going to be a fun night. Bottom of the hour, Sixers and Raptors playing Game 1 in Toronto. Spurs and Nuggets, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Game 7 followed by Inside the NBA. Now, the Sixers and Raptors took similar paths to the Eastern Conference semis. They both lost their openers at home, then ripped off 4 straight wins. They're both top 5 in field goal percentage and assists in the postseason. They both have star power, and they both have players who will ensure a huge TV rating in Cameroon, where the Sixers' Joel Embiid and the Raptors' Pascal Siakam were born. Ian Eagle and Greg Anthony will have the call. Rosgold on Woody works the sidelines, and RGO standing by live in Toronto. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Hi, guys. How you doing? Hey, Jay. A lot of love to the Cameroonians and the Africans representing on the court. One of them, Joel Embiid, and we know how he's battled with left knee soreness all through the first round of playoffs. Well, it's the same story. In the first round, he played about 24 minutes a game. He said today at shoot-around, he's expecting even more time and even more load, and because he knows he has his hands full with Marc Gasol, and that is one of the marquee matchups of this series between Joel Embiid and Marc Gasol. And EJ, one thing is for certain. Joel Embiid will not be calling Marc a nobody, as he infamously did against Jared Dudley in the last series against Brooklyn. He told me he has a lot of respect for Marc Gasol, not only because he was a former Defensive Player of the Year, he said, or because he watched how he was the face of the franchise for the Memphis Grizzlies, but he said the two of them have a relationship, and sometimes Marc Gasol will even reach out and text him and give him a little bit of advice or feedback for things he's doing on the court. Now, yesterday, I sat down with Marc Gasol, and he too is very impressed with Joel Embiid, but he felt one area that he could assert himself was defensively with his physicality. And I asked Mark, where, when, how can you be physical with Joel Embiid? And here's what he had to say.
Every time you cross half court is a matter of fighting for real estate all over the floor. If it's at the elbow, the post, send a pick and roll and a rebound, it's kind of a whole battle. I mean, it's kind of basketball, and you just make it stand and try to fight it, and hopefully offensively you can go at him a couple times, which make him work.
Another aspect to handle with Joel Embiid is his mouth. He likes to talk, to trash talk, to annoy, to troll. And so I asked Marc Gasol, will you engage in that with Joel? And Mark said to me, I don't hear trash talk. In fact, trash talk is not really a part of his game. He said, if anything, he'll talk to himself to get himself going. So this battle, it may not be vocal, but it'll definitely be physical. Guys?
Roz Goldon-Woode from Toronto. Fellas, that is certainly a matchup to watch, but when we first knew this was going to be the series, the thing we talked about, Charles, was Ben Simmons, Kawhi Leonard, their history in the regular season, in which Kawhi Leonard only played 3 games. They won them all, but he was a pain to Ben Simmons.
He's obviously the best two-way player in the NBA. And Ben Simmons, the advantage Kawhi has, he don't have to respect Ben Simmons' jump shot. So he's really got 2 defenders. He's a great defender. I mean, 8 turnovers
per game. Yeah, 24 in those 3 games.
Man, that's crazy.
That's a lot.
But see, Kawhi has an advantage. Number one, he's a great defender, but also, and Kenny knows this, if you're playing against a guard who can't shoot, it really helps you play defense. You really got 2 defenders.
You can hone on. You can hone in. The one thing that Kawhi is able to do, again, is he's probably one of the few guys who has the size to play out front and have the same quickness. Typically guys that are guarding Ben Simmons, he's gonna have a quickness advantage or he's gonna have a size advantage. Against Kawhi, he doesn't really have a size advantage, and he definitely doesn't really have a quickness advantage. So now the lack of jump shot makes you difficult to get your stuff off, get in your bag if you're Ben Simmons. Because the other thing, Shaq, is like, when I used to play against Muggsy Bogues, he was such a great thing, but he wasn't a great shooter. And they used to say, play off him. I was like, no, if you play off him, then you make him great. You make him a passer. But no, so what Kawhi does, he takes up the space, and Marc Gasol talked about real estate. He takes it up, and he says, no, I'm not going to let you see things, and I'm quick enough to stay with you and long enough to block your shot possibly.
And not only that, if he jams him up, he could drive him to the help. Like, Charles said, he's playing against 2 defenders. But he's definitely in his head, but, Ben has to get through that, and this is the time, like you always say, you make your fame. We all know who Ben Simmons is, but if you want to go to the next level, he has to get through Kawhi. And the battle of the big men, I used to like when big guys say what they was going to do, but he makes a good point. You got to be physical with Joel Embiid. The question is, after he's physical with Joel Embiid, will he do what me and you hate, Chuck? Will he stay out there and shoot threes, or will he fight? If he fights, they'll win. If he don't fight, I'm with Toronto.
Well, I actually think this was a great under-the-radar pickup, Marc Gasol, because Marc Gasol is one of the few guys, when he's standing next to Embiid, doesn't look small. Like, normally you see Joel Embiid, like when he play against an Al Horford, you just like, man, that's a big old dude. But Marc Gasol's size, he's over 7 feet tall. He's a good weight. So that's going to be a great matchup. And listen, Joel Embiid going to have to play more than 20-some minutes if Philly got any chance in this series.
By the way, Kawhi Leonard, 13-0 in his career against the Philadelphia 76ers.
That's crazy.
10-0 as a Spur, 3-0 in the games that he played.
That's a crazy stat.
As a Raptor. And also, Philadelphia has lost 13 games in a row in Toronto heading into this series. And another one of those things, and something's got to give. Philadelphia just overpowered Brooklyn, 122 points a game. Against Orlando, the Raptors held them to 92 points a game. Where's this one going to fall? Is Toronto going to be able to control these guys to some extent? Philadelphia shot 50% over their last 4 games.
Toronto will, because Kawhi is going to be all over Ben. Mark's going to be all over Embiid. The others are definitely going to step up. But a lot of times, if the superstars don't get the others going, you really don't have a game plan. And Kawhi is that type of guy. He really, Chuck's been saying this. I've been saying it. He's definitely a superstar. They are at home. He's going to have them playing well. I like Toronto in this series because Philly hasn't proven that much to me yet.
Well, if Philly, I picked Toronto to win the series also. But if they're going to win this series, it's going to be Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. Those are two guys. Siakam is a problem.
Big problem.
He's a big problem. But if Philly, because like I say, I think they're going to be able to control Embiid and Simmons. The wild cards are Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. That, in my opinion.
And this is why I think that they're 13. Kawhi Leonard's 13-0 against them, because if you think about it, if you were playing against a Steve Nash team, no matter what happened, you had to play fast. You played against a Jason Kidd team, you had no how. You play against a Rajon Rondo when he was at Celtics, he forced the pace. You played against Ben Simmons, you had to play at a certain pace. Kawhi Leonard says no, you're not playing at
my pace.
You're going to play at my pace because I could defend you, and now I can make it difficult for you to play at that pace.
I have the sticky notepad out. Chuck, you got Raptors?
Yes, sir.
You got Raptors in how many?
7.
Raptors in 7. Kenny, you've got?
Raptors.
In?
5.
Damn.
Shaq?
Raptors.
And he going to ask
Do I have to say in to everybody?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I was just being polite. You said to them.
Raptors in
All right.
Okay.
I
thought you might say Raptors
boom,
in.
look, boom,
Okay.
bam,
All right.
boom, bam. I thought you were going to hit me with the boom, bam. Raptors in 6.
Raptors in 6. And I've got.
Trying to be polite, Mr.
And I've got the Raptors
And
6.
I appreciate
it's
your
unanimous.
answer. I was just being polite.
okay, guys, let's get ready
You
for
apologize
the
to Sharon.
greatest words in sports.
Yeah, that was mine.
Game 7.
Yes.
Ernie, I've been loving you since 19.
I know. That was my bad. I was out of line. I apologize.
It's all right. You don't have to apologize.
We'll take a look at San Antonio and Denver Game 7 when we come back.